Welcome to We Are Montgomery Township, the podcast where we keep you informed and engaged about what's happening in Montgomery Township in Montgomery County.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of We Are Montgomery Township. I'm Carolyn McCreary, Township Manager. Today, I am joined by Tanya Bamford, who is an elected member to the Board of Supervisors, and this year is serving as the Chairwoman. So welcome, Tanya. Thank you for giving us time on this frigid afternoon.
Hello, Carolyn. It's lovely to be indoors where it's toasty and warm.
So a little bit about yourself for those who are new to our podcast, those who maybe don't follow our normal meetings and, get an idea of, who actually is on our board, even though they are the ones who have elected you. So just for our audience in general.
So again, my name's Tanya Bamford, and I am the chair of the Board of Supervisors for Montgomery Township. I'm a longtime Montgomery Township resident. I own a small business, and I'm a parent of two boys. I raised my family here. Both boys were born here and attended North Penn schools. They're both in college now. Professionally, I work in strategic communications, and that has certainly given me a strong appreciation for transparency and planning and decision-making. I ran for the board for the first time in 2017, was elected. I'm serving currently in my second term, and I just think that engaging in the community this way, giving back to the community this way is incredibly important to me. I was a poli-sci grad from West Virginia University, and political science was not my career path, actually, but now I feel like the whole thing has come full circle, and I'm able to, apply that education to what I'm doing on a regular basis here on behalf of Montgomery Township.
So that gives a little bit of perspective. You're a poli-sci nerd. So
it's true.
Question, there's a lot of ways that you can give back to your community. So what puts you on this path to running for an elected office?
So when it was in the wake of the 2016 presidential election, there was a narrative that was being put forward about how few women candidates there were coming up through the ranks, and that women in general do not immediately respond to the call to run for office, whereas men feel more entitled to it. There were all these stories about how few women actually step forward to run for offices despite being really qualified or despite being asked numerous times. And it was interesting. It was, one of those programs that I was watching where this was the narrative. And all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I think they're talking about me. I had been asked on numerous occasions to run for local office and always thought as a small business owner, I couldn't be political. And I started to question that. I call it head trash, that belief that I couldn't be political. So I started asking my clients and said, I have an interest in running for a local office. How would you feel about that? And I was really pleasantly surprised that they all were so incredibly supportive and said, no, we think you'd be great. And, where can we send a check? And that was a big surprise to me. So, and it was very gratifying. So I decided to, put my qualms aside and really focus on what it was that I wanted to achieve by stepping forward to run for a political office, which is really to give back to my community. And so that's what I did. I moved forward. I won, and here I am today.
It's a lot. I mean, it's a 6-year term. I don't commit to things that I know are going to go beyond a year usually. So I commend anybody who takes on that role. For those who don't know, we have 5 supervisors.
Yes.
They're all elected for 6-year terms, staggered terms, so that we don't have just a whole board changing at once. So you became chair for 2026. You resumed the chairmanship. What do you see as the role for chairwoman of the Board of Supervisors in this particular township?
So the chair, the role of chair, it doesn't really distinguish you in that many regards as it relates to decision making on the board, because the chair is just one vote of 5. We are all equal on the board, but the chair has some other sort of administrative roles, and so it is more work for the chair for sure, because we're a point person, we're a spokesperson, and I think what we do is we put the agendas together, and we ensure that our meetings are productive, that they run smoothly, that they are compliant, of course, with all of the different regulations. But I do think that, the duty of the chair primarily is to build consensus around our action items to make sure that our meetings are as productive as possible.
Was it a challenge to run the meeting when you previously were just participating? So running the meeting, you have to make sure all of your colleagues get a chance to speak on an issue. You have to make sure the public has an opportunity to speak and that the meeting is running efficiently. What are the challenges?
The fact that I'm a small business owner and that I work as a marketing consultant and I have a lot of experience being a meeting facilitator. I'm actually a trained meeting facilitator. So I would say that role seemed very natural to me in taking over that particular role. I didn't feel like I had a difficult time transitioning to that leadership role, because certainly in other facets of my life, I had to assume those same responsibilities, a little different, but with a little less emphasis on Robert's rules of procedure. But no, I didn't feel like it was a big transition moving from just, a regular board member to chair.
So you became chair in 2020 the first time. Yeah. A very challenging time for us. You became chair in January. I became manager in January. And first week in March, we had our first case of COVID-19 in Montgomery County. So those were challenging times, figuring out how to get a meeting done, figuring out how to get township operations continuing to run. But overall, what do you think is your most challenging part of leading a board?
I think being chair is a balancing act, and you're constantly trying to, move the township forward in a positive direction, building that consensus amongst your board members who may not all think alike, and in fact, having disagreements is a big part of the process, and it's a very healthy thing, but it can also be a really difficult thing to navigate. So, but making sure that we are meeting the needs of our constituents is first and foremost, like the top priority. And ensuring that people are being heard and have that opportunity to have their voices heard. And your constituents, they look very different, so not just in terms of like the diversity of our community, which we are fortunate to live in a very diverse community, but in terms of, there are internal stakeholders, there are external stakeholders, there are business owners, there are residents, there are visitors to the township, people who are traveling through the township. You have all these people are essentially constituents, because they're likely to encounter your services as a township. So there are a lot of different needs and demands for all of these different constituency groups. And so as chair, you've really got to make sure that you're doing a great job of communicating, that staff is doing a great job of reaching out to all of those different constituencies. Again, it's a lot of sort of balls to juggle, if you will. But reflecting back on 2020, I am particularly proud of how we navigated that moment. It was such a crisis, unprecedented in nature, and there's just absolutely no playbook that we could refer to. And I'm a huge advocate for, reach out to colleagues in all these other communities and make sure that you're availing yourself of best practices. And while that's great and true and wonderful, when something comes along like a pandemic, there's no rule book. So really, it's just a matter of gathering your internal resources and putting all of those best minds to work at how are we going to tackle this, previously uncharted territory. And I'm particularly proud of what we were able to accomplish in that moment.
So you mentioned the number of stakeholders, and you definitely have a passion about making sure that their voices are heard. As an aside, what would you tell people who want to get their voice heard in Montgomery Township? What's the best way to let the supervisors know, you in particular, Chair, what's on their mind or what they think we're doing well or not doing well?
Having a voice is making sure that your voice is heard, and we want as many people as possible to come and engage in our meetings. And if you don't have an opportunity to come to one of our meetings, you can reach out to us via email. But I will tell you that people know who I am out in the community and generally don't hesitate to come out and share their thoughts to me when I'm walking the dog or I'm at the grocery store or what have you. And that's fine. It comes part and parcel with this role as being an elected representative. Wherever you are, that's always going to occur. But it's a good thing. And we need to be receptive and open to hearing that kind of feedback. So as much as possible, write us a letter, come to our meetings, send us an email, make a phone call. Let us know what it is that you're experiencing, the things that you enjoy about the services that the township is providing. And, if there are things that we could be doing better, then don't hesitate to reach out and let us know. And also, even if it's not a service that necessarily the township provides, but if you need help or assistance or know someone else who does, chances are we know the agency or the individuals that can help them. So, we are here to help. And I think that's the message that I want to make sure gets across to everyone is that we are here to help you. And if you are experiencing any challenges, any frustrations, let us know. And if we can, we will assist you. And if we can't, we'll point you in the right direction to someone who can.
I think that's one of the things that I'm most proud of here is the fact that we have so many partners in the community that we're able to do that. We don't just give someone a phone number. We actually have a name we can give to someone and say, this person can help you with this better than we can. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about that, but this person is exactly the one you need to reach out to. So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about the board. And, there have been times where there have been obviously on any board differences of opinion, even disagreements about things. So how do you navigate that and still move decisions forward? Because things can't stall. We can't table things forever, as you know, and, sort of stall in our tracks and don't move something forward that might be necessary, even just in our operations.
So often, I think the public may have a perception that there's someone who has an agenda, and that that some of the things that come across, as an action item are because, A, B, or C individual really wanted that to happen. And more often than not, it's actually a case of, no, someone from the community came and made a suggestion. And I think a great example of that is backyard chickens, and having backyard chickens, or permitting backyard chickens in Montgomery Township. And so I will say that we had members of the community. It was, again, during COVID-19, and this was something that people wanted to have a greater sense of connection to the food and the source of their food. And so why wouldn't we allow, backyard chickens in Montgomery Township? And so that was a heated discussion on our board, and we didn't necessarily all agree immediately to a particular direction. It was something that staff had to research. My goodness, the amount of research that you guys did on that particular issue. And I thought we had some really interesting, spirited discussions about it, and ultimately, with some limitations in place, did elect to approve backyard chickens in the township. I'm happy to say I don't think we've had any complaints about anybody who has actually put a coop in their yard, but again, it was something that it came to us from the community, as these things so often do, or the the board has to respond to a request or to a situation, and there may be some spirited debate about, what's the right solution here, or whether or not we should approve something of that nature. And as a chair, I think we just have to make sure that you're reaching out individually to your board members to gain their insights, to gain their input, and that can also help you to navigate those moments in the public meetings, making sure that we're moving things in a positive direction while also maintaining that sort of courtesy and respect for one another, as well as the members of the community who may have requested, whatever the topic may be.
Well, since I have you here, I'm going to throw you a little curveball on this. We talked about backyard chickens, and obviously we had to do a lot of research, and a lot of communities around us, they weren't even touching it. So we went beyond our state to see what some urban areas were even doing. Can you sort of talk about why some things seem to take longer than people's expectations when it comes to coming up with a policy or adopting an ordinance or approving a land development?
Well, there are a lot, unlike the COVID-19 pandemic, where it was uncharted territory, right? We live in a state, we are one of 62 municipalities in Montgomery County, which is one of 67 counties in the state. And so even if you just look at Montgomery County, there are just an incredible number of other municipalities that we can look to for guidance. And so then you try to triangulate on, what are the commonalities across these municipalities? Because as we're doing that type of research, and you in particular are doing this kind of research, whether we're staying within the county, looking at the municipalities within our county or across the 67 counties in the state, we're trying to find these commonalities. Who has a similar mixture of uses in their township? Who's similarly built out? We're like 98% built out, right? So, you have to do all of that legwork, and all of that research takes time. And then, of course, in the adoption of any new ordinance, we're just undergoing some research now as it relates to data centers. We're just starting down that road, and it's going to be really important for our township to consider this particular issue. And it is something that is, it's an up-and-coming issue for many municipalities, but there are a lot of nuances to it. And we have to look at other ordinances that have been placed elsewhere, impacts that these have on our, natural resources. There are so many different aspects of this to consider. And all of that takes so much time. And it's not the supervisors who are doing it, it's the staff who's doing it amongst all their other responsibilities. So you put something like that, which is a major project to consider and fully research. This is why we, as you know, I'm speaking to the choir here, but on behalf of everyone who's listening, that's why it's important to bring in these external resources, to outsource to consultants and avail ourselves of these, additional resources that we can put to work on our behalf while we're, maintaining the operations of the daily operations of the municipality.
One of the things I was thinking about when you said that is unintended consequences when you pass an ordinance. So, for example, the first meeting in January, there was a proposed ordinance having to do with feeding animals, feeding wild. I hate using the word wild because I don't mean like cougars and bears, but just animals that are outdoors that are not your household pets. And immediately, the discussion was, this seems like a good idea. But then it was like, well, wait, let's pause. What happens if people compost? And yes, they've got their containers out there and everything's safe, but there's animals who are getting very creative and have found ways to get it. Or, someone leaves a pumpkin out. And so therefore, there's all of a sudden an animal that's coming out and eating that. I thought it was really good that the board said, let's just pump the brakes before we put this in and then have to redo it or undo it. Let's see what other people are doing. Let's see what our EAC thinks about it. And then we'll revisit it again.
Right. It's topics like that, we discuss and we do our level best to try to think through all the different scenarios. And one of the other things that, came to me after that discussion was that, there was all this I guess a common topic of discussion is the food waste that goes to our landfills, and how more and more people are being encouraged to actually compost, which, again, lends more need to thoroughly, I think, explore, the composting component to this, say, well, we don't want people to necessarily feel like they can't put like a pumpkin out that was on their step, out in their tree line or something, because, an animal might get to it and instead no, that needs to go in the garbage and go to a landfill and contribute to the landfill. So there are all of these different aspects that we need to consider and make sure that, to your point, there's no unintended consequence happening here that would negatively impact the community in another way while trying to resolve this issue about, animals coming into yards and eating people's landscaping.
So what leadership principles guide you as chairwoman?
Communication is, I think, at the heart of what I want to see us, do, just really set that gold standard for every other municipality to meet. I want us to, be waving that communication flag. And we were just, I think when people feel like they were informed, when we went out of our way to make sure that they were informed and they have a general sense of comfort about the decision making, because the decision making was very transparent and proactive. And it's when people don't feel like they had all of the information and they don't feel like the information was delivered on a timely basis. And that's when you start to get people feeling a lot more frustrated and feeling like they're not being well represented. And I know that everyone on our staff believes in doing what's right and in the best interest of our community. I just want to make sure, as chair, my primary objective is to ensure that we're doing a great job in communicating. That's why I wanted to do this podcast. I think this is a wonderful opportunity, again, to let people know how decisions are being made, and what our goals and objectives are. And really, it's to provide a really top-notch, first-rate services to our community. And as it relates to decisions, making sure that we're proactive and if anything, over-communicating to people about the various different efforts and initiatives that we're undertaking.
So that leads me to what are the township's priorities in 2026?
Aha. Well, I think it's,
Communication?
Yes, communication is absolutely a priority. Just maintaining high quality public services, being responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. I mean, it's all the typical things. I don't think we're taking the township in necessarily a new direction, just trying to improve upon what we feel is already really strong. And but I would say that my personal sort of ethos is that you can always be better. And even if we feel like we are the gold standard, then I want to be the platinum standard. I think that, we have to be in this mindset of continual improvement, that we can always be better. And if you embrace that philosophy, then you're always challenging yourself to just, take that extra step and do the extra to make things even better, more intuitive, be more customer centric in our approach. That, for me, is my goal for 2026 and beyond for Montgomery Township.
But I see how you've done that even for staff, because you have been the biggest proponent of training, continuing education, learning more regardless of what the source is, whether it's, watching, a webinar or going to a conference in your field. You've never challenged, like, why are we spending resources on continuing, to raise up our staff? And I think that's really important.
Right. We don't want to stay static. And through training, through attending conferences, these are the ways that we are able to bring new ideas, new information, new approaches to help us refine our own policies and procedures and practices. So absolutely, and we will continue to invest in training and in conference participation for all of our team members. It's really important, and I think all of the staff, you could speak to this yourself, you want to feel like you have the opportunity to take that next step in your own professional development. You want to feel like you're working for an organization that's going to invest as much in you as you are investing in it and your job and your roles and responsibilities. So we want to encourage all of our team members, all of our staff members to take advantage of those opportunities, because we know that by investing in you, it just makes you better at performing your job on behalf of all of our constituents.
Well, our most important asset is our staff. I mean, you provide services across the board. So, in order to provide those services, you need to find people who want to continue to do their best, regardless of what their role is, and understand that because we're invested in them, we're willing to invest in them and give them additional opportunities that maybe in the past they didn't think would even rise to the level of something they would even ask for. So I thank you for that. So a year from now, if we're talking, how would you measure success in the township?
Boring meetings. Boring meetings. No, I don't. To the extent that we have people coming in to share positive feedback with us, which isn't to say that we don't ever want to hear, criticism, because that's not true, because it's only through receiving that criticism that we improve. And we need to know, we always should be receptive to hearing that kind of feedback from everyone. To the extent that, our meetings go by really quickly and without a lot of negative commentary, that would, certainly, I think, be an indication these days, in particular, where more and more people are engaged, that we're doing a pretty good job.
What are the challenges for engagement? I mean, everybody's busy. Everybody's, even that we live stream our meetings, not everybody's going to give it the time to some people won't even go to the website to look at the agenda. So how do we measure true engagement with our community?
Oh, measurement, metrics. Now you're talking my language. I think that there are a lot of different ways that we can measure engagement. Everything, from, your standard marketing metrics and, social media analytics and analytics as it relates to website traffic and, how many views that you have on your YouTube videos. So certainly we know that has dramatically improved over time. And I'm particularly proud of having championed making sure that we had a presence across all of those different channels, because when I joined the board back in 2018, we did not. And so this is just people may have forgotten that, these things didn't really exist pre-2018. They were things that were championed by members of the board and including the upgrade to our AV system, which allows us to live stream. And I have had wonderful conversations with residents who watch these meetings very faithfully now and really appreciate the opportunity to do so from the comfort of their own homes. So I'm proud of what we've accomplished to date in terms of making it more accessible. The accessibility factor can always be improved upon, though. Like, how do we get out into the community more? And I'd love to see us do more presentations to homeowners associations at their meetings. And I know that we've said, well, it's available, but I think we could probably reach out more proactively to try to book ourselves in those venues, because there are so many times when we have information to share that will be a benefit to them and their communities. And why not take that show on the road? I think that's a great idea. We should do that. Investing in more direct mail. Well, one of the things that I think we learned very clearly from the last year was how impactful direct mail can be. And, that when people got the postcard in their mail about the proposed firefighter expansion, we saw a huge influx of traffic to our meetings. And so that was effective. To me, that's a really great indicator that we should do more of the direct mail, because there are certain percentage of the community that doesn't really tune into social media. So we should just make sure that we're engaging with people, interacting with them in person as much as possible and via direct mail, so that we keep everybody informed about the things that are happening in the township.
One of the things I think that's really important too is that we are part of community with a capital C. When I got here, I know there was a big talk about content neutrality. But to me, that took away from we should be able to promote if our high school is having its annual spring musical, because we are part of the North Penn School District. And again, when I talked to you about it, you had no qualms whatsoever. So we did a podcast with the director of the North Wales Area Library, because it's important. That's a gem in our community. We don't have our own library, but as we found out, surprisingly, the percentage of our residents that are using that one. So I think, to me, success is that we continue to reach out. Now, whether people reach out back or not, we won't know, but at least we know we've exhausted all efforts, whether, like you said, it's direct mail, we continue on with social media. The fact that we have someone in-house to do social media. It's not just a task that we assign to someone else and say, here's another duty as assigned. Can you keep up with the Facebook traffic? That doesn't work anymore. And once you've dipped your toe in, it's expected now. So with the board supportive of that, I think we're going to just see things take off still.
Information sessions, and another thing that I would love to see us do even more of. And during COVID, I felt like we did a great job hosting town halls. We had one virtually that we did with Dr. Valerie Arkush, and that was really well received as it related to the pandemic and the stages that we were in and what that meant for everybody. There are other topics that I'm sure are going to be coming up that we could take a proactive stance on, being, a conduit of information about things that are happening and the way they will potentially impact our community. And so I'd love to take a leadership role in having those discussions. In fact, one of the things I'm really proud of is, we're partnering with Mankato. It's the Montgomery County Association of Township Officials, and our vice chair, Beth Staub, is the chair of that board for this nonpartisan County Association of Township Officials. And she advocated for hosting a meeting to discuss data centers. And we are hosting it here in Montgomery Township. And I think that's a wonderful thing, not just for that organization, but I feel like we're taking a leadership role in having that dialogue, in talking through what the potential impacts could be and how to lead in this moment and manage a evolving issue like that. So, as a best practice, I think being the host, taking a leadership role in bringing people, stakeholders together to share information and best practices around these emerging issues is something that I would continue to advocate for here in Montgomery Township.
I also think it's important that people understand what it is that we do. To that extent, we're talking internally about developing a series of classes for Citizens Academy. So the police offer it, and we would like to. So, do one on public works, have one night on administration, what goes into putting together a Board of Supervisors meeting agenda and packet, and then how that goes out to everybody. What else, what we do in finance, what we do in planning and zoning, what involves code enforcement. I think a lot of people, issue-centric is one thing, but some people don't even know about their own local government. And I think it's really important. So since you said you want to take the lead, we will be sure to put your name in when we come time to
sign me up.
Put together.
Sign me up.
So finally, Tanya Bamford's crystal ball. Where do you see the township in 5 to 10 years?
That sounds like such a job interview question. I mean, where are we going to be well, I think that in 5 to 10 years, we're going to continue to improve on our already stellar best practices. And we're really going to be leading Montgomery County and the state in terms of our overall communications. I think we already do in a lot of ways, and I think that with this focus on continual improvement, that we're going to be, winning awards and accolades, and but more so than for the glory. This is really all about helping everyone else achieve that same level, that same platinum standard, if you will, for communication, because the more we share those best practices with our peers and colleagues across the county and across the state, the better everyone will be, but the better all residents of all of those communities will be, because when we show them the benefit, the impact, the positive impact that these policies can have on a community, and they start to embrace them, everybody benefits as a result.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for your time. I really appreciate it.
That was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the We Are Montgomery Township podcast. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast and follow Montgomery Township on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at MontTWP. Our display name is Montgomery Township, PA. Until next time, we are Montgomery Township.